Okay, so let's talk about the 10 stages of genocide with particular reference to the situation that we're currently seeing unfold in Gaza right now. So stage 1 is classification. It involves dividing people into groups of us versus them. So in particular, with this case, Israelis versus Arabs. Even Jewish Arabs will erase their own ethnic identity so as not to conflate themselves with the group being targeted. Number 2 is symbolization, so people being forced to identify themselves. So there are different ID cards for Israeli citizens and for Palestinians, most of whom are actually denied citizenship. Stage 3, discrimination. So this includes systematic institutionalized discrimination. So you have a legal system that privileges Israeli citizens over Palestinians, again, most of whom don't have citizenship, some of whom have residency, depending on where they live. If they're in Gaza, they have one set of rules. If they're in the West Bank, they have another set of rules. And if they're in Jerusalem, they have another set of rules. Stage 4 is dehumanization, so people being equated with animals, vermin, or disease. So in this case, an example would be the Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, referring to Palestinians as human animals. So step 5 is organization, the government creating specific groups to enforce these discriminatory policies. So you've obviously got the Israeli police force and you have the Israeli occupation forces, who are a military army who enforce martial law upon the people in the occupied territories. They have military checkpoints which restrict Palestinians' movements and often deny people seeking urgent medical care to actually pass through at the rate that they need to pass through. It's not uncommon that women will have to be forced to give birth at these checkpoints, and many, many other people have lost their lives due to the delays at these checkpoints. Okay, number 6 is polarization. So the government broadcasts propaganda to turn the populace against the group. Now, we've obviously seen this rolling out on a mass level internationally, where, conflating the people with terrorists, conflating the entire civilian populace with the actions of a particular group, often which they themselves created, and I've posted evidence of that on my feed if you want to go take a look. So obviously black ops are really, really a very important tool that imperialistic and settler colonial governments will use in order to continue the polarization and the persecution of people, creating certain figureheads and certain puppet regimes and puppet groups that then go and enact certain black ops that are not in the interests of the group, and then conflating that group with the figurehead, with the puppet regime or the puppet group. Okay, we saw this throughout the war on terror, okay, with Saudi deep state funded madrasas and all kinds of terror cells. This was even done in the founding of the Zionist project with Zionist funded terror cells in Egypt that were Jewish, that caused the expulsion of Jewish communities within Egypt to prop up the Zionist project. Okay, number 7 is persecution. So beginning of murders, theft of property, trial massacres. So the Israeli occupation forces will bulldoze Palestinian homes. You've got armed settlers who will go and take over Palestinian homes. And, obviously we're not seeing the first siege of Gaza. This happens every year or every 2 years. And while everybody's eyes are on Gaza right now, you've got Israeli occupation forces as well as armed settlers currently going into the West Bank and enacting pogroms against the indigenous Palestinians who are living there. And this is obviously not the first time this has happened. This has been going on throughout 2023 and throughout the last 75 years. And as I mentioned before, obviously the Israeli Defense Forces have a shoot-to-kill policy as well when initiating curfews and things like that. Okay, number 9 is extermination, which is elimination of the group. This can be in part or in whole. And it's specifically called extermination because the group has already been dehumanized to the level that they are not seen as human. Just to give you an example of this, here's a quote from one particular Israeli politician. Now, there is only one goal, Nakba, a Nakba in Gaza that will dwarf the Nakba of 1948. So that's just one quote from one representative of the Israeli authorities. I've posted multiple quotes on my profile. You can all go take a look. So if you have any doubts about the fact that genocide is not their goal. And number 10 is denial. And we're obviously seeing that roll out in the corporate media and even in the comment sections of our posts, where people will deny, or the group in question that is exterminating the other group will deny having committed a crime, even though it's clearly obvious that they have committed a crime. So, such justifications as they're human shields, they're terrorists, conflating them with the puppet group that was set up, or even if it's not a puppet group, just conflating them with a particular group that the group trying to exterminate the other group wants to remove. Like, by that logic, you could also argue that all Israeli citizens are responsible for the crimes of the Israeli occupation forces or the Israeli government who have revealed genocidal views. You see where we could take that and why it's ridiculous. Claiming that they're bombing themselves, as we've seen, producing fake evidence to deny culpability, such as we've seen with them producing old videos in the case of the hospital bombing, or like fake voice recordings of so-called Hamas fighters that independent evaluators have agreed is completely fake. Those are the 10 stages of genocide. Please share this video and let me know your thoughts.